Righto guys, my aim in this video is not only to distract you from the 11:22 news that Goredrinker and Riven are getting buffed, but to also show you how Gumayusi, who arguably has the best AD carry mechanics of all time, carries challenger solo queue games. Now lots of players will moan about their support being trash or how their jungler never ganks. Well, in the first of the two games we are going to analyze, Gumayusi has a substandard Sona supporting him. She was probably boosted by her EBF, but he still ends up winning most of the 2v2s. So I am going to teach you how you can practically 1v2 the bot lane, and in the second game Guma just unleashes on Tristana and he goes like 12-0 and wins in 15 minutes. So what is the big secret here? Well, we are about to find out. Just look in at Halo Blade's AD carry. Now, but seriously guys, there is one thing in the bot lane that the best AD carriers in the world are always aware of, and this is quite simply cooldowns. So after leashing his jungler's blue buff, he's going to run to the bot lane. Now we can see that Sona used her Q there and Nami used her W. But still, if we were to run up and trade, we have to understand that Lucian still has his Q and therefore is passive. So Gumayusi is just going to relax a little bit, but all of a sudden Lucian uses his Q. Now remember, Nami is still on cooldown and Lucian just used his Q. So in terms of abilities, the enemy champions have 0. So Gumayusi can actually run up and trade with the Lucian here, and you can see that the only thing the enemy champions can do, well, Nami's just auto-attacking. That's it. There's no W and Lucian has no Q. And shortly after this trade ends, we can even tell that Nami has her W backup just by the way she moves. She suddenly starts running towards Gumayusi, so we can already tell that just by the way her character is facing. So if I draw a line in that direction, on her screen, her right click is over Gumayusi and she is spamming the W key. So Gumayusi, because it's so obvious, is just going to run back. But unfortunately here, Sona kind of lets him down because Sona 100% has her Q back up, and when Nami goes for a W here, Gumayusi could actually auto-attack her, but Sona has to respond to this. But instead she's standing back AFK. So perhaps what Gumayusi could do is actually ping the Nami when she moves forward, and that would let Sona know, let's put some damage on the Nami who's running straight at me. But the lane continues, and Gumayusi, because he knows Nami just used his W on him, he's going to run towards the Nami to look to trade. But we have to remember guys, there are two champions in the bot lane. So Lucian definitely has his Q back up, so we have to respect this. We can't just tunnel vision into the Nami through a big creep wave. Now thankfully, Sona puts a really nice bit of damage onto Lucian here, but we still have to count our champions cooldowns as well. So Sona has no Q, and then shortly afterwards, Lucian is going to Q. So Gumayusi, after seeing this, should really play a lot more aggressive, especially when he hits level 2 first. But I'm going to tell you guys what I think Gumayusi is thinking. I think that he thinks because Sona hasn't really done that well so far in the lane, it's almost like he doesn't trust her, just by the way she's been playing. So he's actually going to play a bit more passive, and this is fine because you're not dying. You're not putting yourself at risk. But unfortunately here guys, Gumayusi is about to die, and it's really because he doesn't respect, again, the enemy champion's cooldowns. So the first thing we see during this trade is Lucian E towards Gumayusi, and this is really good because if I pause it here, Lucian is actually in between Sona and Draven. So this is technically a 1v2 despite Nami being right next to him. But Gumayusi guys unfortunately overextends here. Yes, the Lucian is exhausted, but some of the spells guys are still cooldowns. Nami and Lucian have exhaust and ignite, and just because Sona doesn't have any cooldowns left, Gumayusi taking on this trade is very risky indeed because Nami is now part of this fight. So after that damage onto the Lucian, Gumayusi should have just relaxed and backed up, but because he extends this trade into the Nami's cooldowns, he ends up losing it and doesn't flash early enough as well, and Nami ends up killing him. So as soon as you know you're in trouble guys and you might die, flashing earlier most of the time is going to be better than flashing as late as this. But even after this death, Gumayusi is going to show you how you can still win trades in the bot lane despite being behind. So just a little mini example here, when Nami comes back to lane, we can see that Lucian is so far away from a potential fight here. So Gumayusi and Sona can quickly 2v1 this Nami, which is what ends up happening. So Gumayusi gets in a nice auto attack, and that's a nice little bit of damage. Now when this lane resets back towards the middle, we have to understand that the enemy bot lane has 6 cooldowns, 3 abilities apiece, right? So we really have to be aware of what we're doing here guys. Now Gumayusi is going to auto attack the wave just to get the push, so they have the minion advantage, and all of a sudden Lucian is going to use his Q and his E. This encourages Gumayusi to W and run slightly towards Lucian, and Nami also used her E as well. So looking for a trade by running towards the enemy bot lane is definitely warranted, but we still have to remember the Nami has her bubble up, so it is a little too risky just to headbutt them straight up. Now if we keep watching this lane, let's try to think what giant monster is going to be thinking about. So there is Nami's bubble, and she also just used her E on Lucian, but because Sona is in a position with her cooldowns available, Gumayusi knows because Nami doesn't have a bubble, he can easily trade with Lucian here and win this fight. This is very different to the level 2 death because Sona has her cooldowns. She hasn't actually used them when Gumayusi starts to trade. So that's another nice little win. But we always have to think about guys why the enemy champions are doing what they're doing. So this Nami throws out a random bubble here, and this forces her to go oom. Now even if she has biscuits, it's a bit of a whack decision because she could well take a lot of damage in return for not having a big form of peel. So Gumayusi going for a trade here makes sense only if this was a straight up 2v2. But at this level guys, these supports are very smart, and they will try to bait you into thinking that they're misplaying when really they're trying to bait you into their jungler who is nearby. nearby. So if you see a really weird decision all of a sudden being made by the enemy support in terms of their positioning or how they're using a cooldown, just try to think, why would they play so randomly all of a sudden? And most of the time, it's because another champion is nearby. So that's 2 deaths for Gumayusi. So is he really still winning this bot lane? Well, we're going to see, guys, in this next clip. He is going to kill the Lucian in a straight up 2v2, and it's only the enemy jungler Gragas that really saves the day. So we're going to see a very similar pattern here. The Nami is going to throw her bubble out at Draven, and Gumayusi, because he dodges it, now knows, Nami doesn't have a bubble. Let's go for a trade. And also Sona is in a position where she can use her cooldowns on the primary target, and this is going to be Lucian here because he's the AD carry. But all of a sudden the Gragas shows, which is really unfortunate, but Gumayusi is still able to kill the Lucian just because Nami uses her key cooldown and because Sona and Draven have all of theirs to focus theirs on the Lucian. So despite being 1-3, it doesn't look great on the scoreboard. Gumayusi is actually winning this lane and is doing better than Lucian. And you're going to see this in this next clip, guys, because Gumayusi again hard wins a trade. And guess what? There's Nami's bubble, and Sona once again is in a position to help Draven out, and they coordinate their abilities onto one target. Now sometimes in your games your support might not be parallel with where you're standing. So if they're standing in Narnia, tell them where to stand, because really your support is an extension of yourself. If they're not doing what you're doing, it's because you're not doing a good enough job of actually communicating your ideas. As long as it's not running it down, of course. Now shortly afterwards, guys, Gumayusi is going to run forward, and oh my goodness, Nami lands her bubble for the first time. This is huge. Well, not really, because look at Lucian. So even if the enemy champions have their key cooldowns like a Nami bubble, like a Nautilus hook, sometimes they are actually just redundant based on where the enemy AD carry is standing. So if Lucian was in this position parallel with Nami, this is a lot more scary because Lucian can actually capitalize on this engage. But because he's so far away, this doesn't mean anything. And it's actually so worth for Gumayusi because Nami goes zoom, and the lane just got so much easier because Nami doesn't have a key cooldown. But the last clip we're going to watch in this Draven game, guys, before we get into the Tristana absolute curb stomping, is actually a very key error that so many AD carries make. So if I freeze it again, we're thinking about the enemy's cooldowns. Lucian is level 6. Nami definitely still has her bubble and has mana for it. So Gumayusi is positioning very smart. He's standing away from a potential Lucian ult, but for whatever reason, his support here is in such a precarious position and she gets bubbled. Now at this point, when Gumayusi's support is caught out, what do you think he should do? Should he try and keep his support alive by tanking the Lucian ultimate? Or should he just let his support get caught and preserve his HP himself? Now he should always in this situation, and you guys should too, if your support is going to run it down like this, let them run it down. Even though Gumayusi gets Nami's flash out of this, Lucian is pretty much full HP, level 6 as well, and he's going to kill both of them here. Even if Gumayusi was to kill Nami, it's still not worth. If he lets Sona die, he's able to farm the next wave, and it's really not the worst thing in the world. He's still in the game. But unfortunately, just because he decides to run it down with his inting support, this pretty much seals the deal in the bot lane, and the red team end up losing in the next 5 minutes. Now in this next game, guys, the clips I'm going to show you, we're going to pay attention to Gumayusi's positioning and also the cooldowns that are going down in this lane. So at the end of this trade, Gumayusi is actually going to end up killing both Rakan and Misfortune. So first of all, I want you to notice Gumayusi's positioning. Because Rakan is on the bottom side of the lane, Gumayusi is on the top side. He doesn't want to be near the enemy support, which is really the main threat. Getting hit by Rakan's W means you're going to get hit by Misfortune. So Gumayusi is standing far away, and all of a sudden, Rakan jumps on his friendly Gragas. So there's Rakan's W. Misfortune just queued an auto attack. So Gumayusi knows, because Gragas is actually the main target here for the enemy team, he has an opportunity to jump straight onto Misfortune's head. And look in the bottom left for me, how he's coordinating his abilities with one another. They're all being used at the same time. It's not one after the other, and this just makes your trading so much more efficient. But the issue with this, guys, isn't actually what Gumayusi does. It's really that Gragas doesn't have mana and doesn't have the resources to fight back and help Gumayusi. And because of this, and the enemy bot lane recognize this, Gragas has to end up flashing away, and he literally lives on like 1 HP here. But once again, the Rakan has flash W'd on Gragas. He does not have his W for Gumayusi, so Gumayusi knows Rakan is pretty much a free kill because he's not going to get touched by any enemy cooldown. So he picks up the kill onto Rakan, and then he's going to W onto Misfortune, knowing the Misfortune doesn't have flash because she just used it, and she's also pretty so any spell she might have, she probably can't use, and Gumayusi picks up 2 kills, and after this shoves the wave, so Misfortune is going to miss all of these red minions. So if there was ever a clip to show you how to perfectly trade in position during a fight in the bot lane, that was certainly a very good shout. Now in this next clip, guys, Gumayusi is going to kill Misfortune once again, and it really starts with his positioning. Because Rakan is holding the high side of the lane, Gumayusi is now holding the lowest side of the lane, and all of a sudden the Misfortune uses her E on Gumayusi, so that's one cooldown, and all of a sudden Rakan uses his W on the Gragas here for whatever reason. So Gumayusi knows that he's not going to get knocked up, there's really no enemy threat at this point, so he jumps immediately onto Misfortune's head, and thankfully, just because Gragas has the same idea, he does the same and they end up picking up the kill. But in your games, guys, I understand your support is probably not going to do this, so what you have to do once again is ping. You have to communicate because we're not playing on the world stage with microphones. We can't communicate like that with our teammates. So it is compulsory straight to ping your ideas, and after picking up the kill onto Misfortune, Gumayusi, because in the bottom left he doesn't have his Q or E now because he just used them on Misfortune, and Graves is level 6, possibly with every single cooldown in the book, he has to get away here, so he W's away and he actually survives this fight. Now if I was to tell you Gumayusi is going to kill the Rakan and then the Misfortune when she gets back to lane here, guys, on this life as well, so he's going to do this while being around 300 HP, you'd probably think I'm crazy. So we're going to figure out exactly how he does this. So when Rakan pushes up here towards Gumayusi, we can probably tell that he hasn't used his W in a while, so this is going to be very close to coming off cooldown, and there is potential for Graves to come in off that knockup and blow Gumayusi up. So as soon as Gumayusi moves up here, it's almost like he baits Rakan into Wing, which is exactly what he does. Then Gumayusi is going to put his explosive charge on the Rakan, auto attacks him as much as possible while moving towards him, and picks up a kill. Now because Gumayusi is playing Tristana, and thankfully because he hits level 6, this is an extra cooldown. And Graves, just because he hasn't used his ultimate, so Gumayusi trusts his instincts and W's towards the Graves. Now Graves instantly ease away, so we have to count that cooldown. Now Gumayusi, because he knows Graves is in a very risky position, he's going to shove this because he really doesn't want to be in lane that long when Misfortune gets back to lane on full HP. But there's a key difference here, guys, between Tristana and Misfortune. Tristana is level 6, Misfortune is still level 5, so Gumayusi is going to exploit this cooldown advantage he has, and as soon as Misfortune runs up, look at this, Misfortune thinks that Graves, because he's nearby, this is a 2v1. It's only a 2v1, guys, when the enemy jungler is actually in your auto attack radius. If he's not, like Graves is near this tri-brush here, it's really just a 1v1. So Gumayusi isolates Misfortune by jumping on top of her head, and because he has that extra cooldown, he's able to blow her to bits, and after killing Misfortune, because his W has reset and Graves is coming around, he ends up escaping and then recalls. Now I've got one more clip to show you guys that shows you how important it is to understand that when the enemy AD carry is farming under their tower and their support isn't nearby, if you have your support or a teammate nearby, in terms of cooldowns, it's most likely 6 against 3, and this is so easy to exploit. So when Misfortune eventually comes to this tower here and tries to farm the wave, we can see on the map that Rakan is nowhere nearby. Misfortune is just on her own here, so it's a very standard kill, but it's very important, again, if your support doesn't do this, to ping them. Now of course, as an AD carry, you should just wait for your support to engage to tank the tower, and these will be very elementary kills for you. And after shoving this wave and getting the first tower, look at the scoreboard, 6-0, 100 CS at 10 minutes, and Misfortune is 1-5, 35 CS down. This is why the game ends at 15 minutes, because Gumayusi's positioning and the way in which he pays attention to the enemy cooldowns and his own team's cooldowns, this is what makes him one of, if not the best AD carry in the world. So take these tips into your games, guys. If you did enjoy the video, please remember to leave a like down below. Also make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and also make sure to check out the GameLeap website at GameLeap.com in the links and comment section. Our challenger players and coaches are uploading so many videos a week for our subscribers on the website, so to get that exclusive access to the champion courses, the guides, the VOD analyses, sign up today, and until tomorrow's daily upload, this has been the Cheers.